Women have always had a natural ability, once they get in touch with it, to attract a man. Your job and goal is to attract him. He wants to pursue you. Too many women are focused on getting the goal rather than attracting the guy. It's kind of gotten backwards, and it doesn't really work. It doesn't make men more masculine. It definitely doesn't make women more feminine. So why would you do it? Ask yourself, why would you do it? Is he not responding quick enough? Is that going to make the difference? He would if you just asked him.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel, where we talk about everything that has to do with femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I am Cherry Lynn, and I am here with my mom, Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
So we're here today to talk about women and initiating the first step in a relationship.
I'm wondering, Professor Nash, if I can ask you to dinner.
Look, if you're interested in whether I am married or not...
Oh, I'm not interested at all.
Well, I'm not.
That's very interesting. Charlie, I want to eat barbecue. And mind you don't go philandering with any other girl, because I'm mighty jealous. How did it happen that you never got married?
Maybe you want to buy me a drink.
I'll have to let you know. I can go both days.
Why are we talking about that today?
Because we get a lot of questions about it. And sometimes if a woman, and this is for single ladies, obviously, if you like a man and he's not really asking you out, or in some cases proposing, you're already going out and he's not proposing, what do you do? What can you do?
You know, it's interesting when you look at this subject. It's a very talked about subject on the internet. I Googled, should women ask men out? I got so much conflicting advice. No wonder so many women are conflicted about this. One of the things I got was, no, they should not. Women asking men on first dates can be taken as aggressive, desperate, and masculine. At the very least, it can signify a loss of power. But then another article that I found, it said women on Twitter are sharing what happens when they ask their crush out on a date. And it goes into this thing about like 5,000 or 6,000 women that asked men out. And of women were excited to try this experiment where they ask these guys out. And they go and ask these guys out. And it turns out to be that these guys love it and they go with them. And so this article, the point I'm getting to is that all these women did it. And they said, oh, well, the guy said yes. So therefore, this must be a great thing, right? Because they all said yes. Well, what do you think about that?
It's easy. It's like a free lunch. It doesn't make for the beginning of a great long-lasting relationship. Now, it might work out okay. You might get away with it, but it's a little high risk.
Here's the thing that I think is so weird about this article is the goal that they just say yes? Because that seems easy to me. It's not about going on a date. It's about finding someone that's compatible with you. How long do these relationships last where these girls ask these guys out and they were like, sure. And then they think, yay. But
one of the things for me, maybe for some of you out there too, I did not want in the future for my husband to ever say, well, she asked me out first, and throw that up to me. I didn't want that. I wanted it the traditional way.
I'm sure there's gals out there that are asking guys to marry them, and I'm sure it's working out okay. I don't know, but I don't know any of those people.
Then why don't you marry me?
Okay, why don't I?
Then I accept.
Really? Why?
And so that's why in Fascinating Womanhood, we say it's higher risk. And there's things we can do. We don't need to do that. And it's better, and we're good at it. We can be very good at this. This is one of our areas of strength. Why take a man's approach to it? It's not better.
I looked up, what do you do when your boyfriend won't propose to you? Try talking to him. The best step is to talk about the concerns and work to improve the relationship. Men who fear the future is bleak won't propose until they're more confident about the future. But This one was really confusing to me.
That's
because
mothering him.
if you go talk to him and say like, hey, I'm really worried you haven't proposed, or like, hey, I'm really worried about where our relationship is going because we're not married yet. I mean, I'm not a man, but I can only imagine how that would make a guy feel, the pressure that would make him feel. And
That sounds like
your
she's mothering him.
insecurities are just blowing out of.
And if he does have those issues like with money, it's going to humiliate him to talk to you about that.
What if he is planning something and you say that to him?
And you say that to him.
Great. I wanted to surprise you. I don't know. That just to me just seemed.
It's mothering too. It's taking on that you need instruction.
You're starting to take the lead again.
You're leading again. Sorry.
I found another article that was like, why is your longtime boyfriend not proposing? It said things like, make sure he's ready. He may just not be ready for a long-time commitment.
How do you make sure he's ready?
It also says, make sure that he can't see a future without you in it. Well, how do you do that?
Well, you have to be somebody with the love of his life is what that means. And to do that, you need to practice the principles of fascinating womanhood, understanding men, accepting at face value, and a sincere admiration. Guys, almost no men get enough of that.
Another one was bring up marriage casually.
Madison, how did it happen that you never got married?
Basically dropping a hint about like, so how do you feel about marriage? I just feel like that's the quintessential girl that's desperate. There's nothing cute about hinting about marriage. It just makes you look desperate.
It makes you look desperate. I would think that it would be very unattractive.
Well, marriage isn't something you can force. You've just got to wait for it to happen.
You certainly do.
Yeah, and there are some things in here that I think is great, like let him see you as wife material, like meaning like show him some of the maybe domestic skills that you have and putting him number one. I think those things can be really good.
One of them was let him know that you can take care of him when he's sick, and I thought that's a little like, and that you can cook a basic healthy meal, nothing fancy.
It's just kind of silly. I don't know. I think some of these stuff is just silly. Describe your idea of a perfect wedding. Like I never did that.
I would never do that.
I always think it's interesting when we're doing topics to look at what's out there because it helps me get an understanding of what is available out there. And some of the girls, especially the younger ones, are turning to the internet for advice. But the thing is when you get all this conflicting advice and some of this stuff is written by, I don't know, people that don't have a lot of experience with relationships, you got to be kind of careful what you see out there.
Well, some of it is frankly bad advice. And one of the things that they don't say often enough is that men are not all the same. You have to actually get to know them and try to figure out why. Like in my book, I list a number of reasons why he may not. And
maybe you do trick him into proposing. Maybe you do successfully do that. Do you really want to do that though? Don't you
really want to have
propose when he's ready?
Yeah. Do you really want a guy that lived with a guy with the rest of your life that you had to kind of talk him into proposing?
It's one thing to influence him and inspire. I think that's the message of this video. Influence, inspire, go for it. Telling him, being assertive and aggressive, maybe not. It
takes away from his own masculinity. You want to marry a guy who's your hero. You want to marry a guy who's kind of your warrior. He wants you to be a treasure. He wants to work for you a little bit. Maybe some more than others. Yeah, allow him that. If that's what he's kind of giving you the impression that he wants to do that. And I honestly believe in this cliche. I know it's cliche. I honestly do believe that if he's interested, he's going for it. I've always believed in that. Guy. And some guys might need a little more nudging than the guys in our family. And I totally have seen those guys. I've met those guys, but it doesn't mean that you have to just jump in there and do his job. So you don't want to be one of those. You're worth way more than that.
We're going to do a little bit of a question and answer thing today about this. So first of all, I think this is the main question that we get all the time. Do you think it's okay for a woman to ask a man out on a date?
You know, this was never a question when I was growing up. It's a relatively modern thing. There's a lot of debate on it. And so I decided to ask Bob because he's such an expert in psychology. And he said something that I kind of thought I was going there anyway, but he said it does not inspire masculinity in men to do that. And not only that, he said it puts a woman in potentially more of a dangerous situation. Some men will see that as saying, I want to have sex with you, like some men do.
Oh.
Whereas we may not. I mean, if you don't know him that well, you haven't been out with him, he may be interested in that anyway. But the thing is, it doesn't inspire masculinity in men. We want our men to be more masculine. There's ways that women have always, things that they have always done to inspire men to ask them out. Men are visual hunters.
That's so great that you say that there. That's the key, is it's okay to inspire him to ask you out, but when you are more aggressively asking him out and like making that first step, just knowing, well, it's okay, but here's what your aftermath might be.
Well, and are you going to continue in taking the more dominant role in that relationship? Is that what you want? You know, or do we want to marry our hero?
Moving into the next question. What about the shy man? What about the man that needs a little bit of encouragement? Is it okay to ask him out then? Or do you still think there are ways you can influence or inspire him to ask you out?
I think there might be a way that you could do it in not a real obvious way. I mean, all men that are shy or introverts, he may have been wounded as much as like, I don't know if I dare trust this. You need to assess in your own mind whether he's attracted to you.
Maybe you want to buy me a drink.
None of us wants to go after a man who's not interested in us. I certainly wouldn't. You need to know whether he's interested in you, and that takes some sensitivity on your part. But if you do, you might look for an opportunity to do something that is sort of not totally a date. Like, do you want to go on this picnic with me that other people are going to? So it's kind of, but kind of not.
Yeah.
You can do that, or might suggest it once, but if he doesn't continue, I wouldn't take that dominant role in the relationship. I wouldn't do it.
I think even the shy man wants to be challenged.
Sometime I'd like to, we'll take you out. Like that, I just meant that I'd like to take you out. Just because I'd like to take you out.
Well, I'd like that too.
I think even the shy
Wants to
man,
win, of course.
exactly. He wants to, I hate to say it, but I think every guy wants to marry a woman that he looks at as kind of a treasure. And
Right.
And I don't mean trophy. I mean like a treasure that you won. And, you know, that could be different for everybody. It can mean so many different things for everybody. But I think at the end of the day, like all men, for the most part, kind of want that. They want a little bit of mystery.
And you want to marry a masculine man. You don't want to be the dominant one in the relationship. It doesn't feel good.
I gotta say, I have known girls that have asked guys out, and it has led to a good relationship, but I have never known where that has happened and it's led to a really strong marriage. I'm sure those couples do exist, but I don't think it's as common that you're going to have a really strong.
No.
You're setting the tone, like you said earlier, you're setting the tone for your relationship by asking him out. Are you going to be?
And why do you need to?
On everything?
Why do you need to? If he is interested in you, he will most likely ask you out. And if he's not interested in you, you're not going to talk him into it. Because remember, men are visual hunters.
What about when you are starting to date? Is it okay to ask him out then, to ask him for a follow-up date? Maybe you're starting to see each other, but you want to be a little bit more serious and more steady. Is it okay to communicate to him like, hey, I want to be, I'm using that word steady, and it's kind of old fashioned, but I can't think of another word, like more serious, like exclusive, I guess is a newer way of saying it. What about that? Should she say something like that to him, or should she just wait?
Well, why would she do it? If she's impatient, does she
I think
think
it's
she
because
won't?
she's worried that he's going to find someone else or he is dating someone else. And she kind of wants, I think I've heard this question many times from our ladies. They say that, should I say something to him? Should I ask him? Are we ready to move to the next step? And I just wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
I think they're focusing too much on that and not on feminine charm and the skills that women naturally have if they cultivate them. You don't need to do those things. Women have always had a natural ability, once they get in touch with it, to attract a man. Your job and goal is to attract him, and then he wants to be in a relationship with you. He wants to pursue you. And too many women are focused on getting the goal, which is rather than attracting the guy. And it's kind of gotten backwards, and it doesn't really work. It doesn't work. It doesn't make men more masculine. It definitely doesn't make women more feminine. So why would you do it? Ask yourself, why would you do it? Is he not responding quick enough? Is that going to make the difference? He would if you just asked him. And by the way, it's to me sort of like saying to a man, do you love me? If he says yes, it doesn't really mean anything.
So, you kinda like me, huh?
I love you.
I think there's so much nonverbal communication that you could be paying attention to. And if he really is dating other people and you're worried about that, to me, again, that's a nonverbal thing that he's saying to you.
You got to win him back. I mean, you need to be indispensable to him. If this is a guy you really are interested in and maybe want to marry, you got to practice fascinating womanhood skills, not asking him out. That isn't going to by itself do it.
Well, asking him if you can be exclusive, to me, is revealing to him that you are insecure about what's going on. And that's not
You don't want to reveal it. If you are, don't let him know.
It's not attractive. I've never asked a guy that before, but I've had, like my husband, when we were dating, he asked me that. And I was really flattered by it. And it meant a lot to me that he asked me that. It meant that he was really invested. And I don't think it would have meant that to him if I had said it. I think it means just because it's flattering to us doesn't mean it's flattering to them.
Yeah, right. We are not
the same.
the same. No, we're not the same.
And I think that's why a lot of women take this plunge, is saying, oh, it would mean a lot to me if someone said this to me, so I'm going to say it to him. It's like, well, but he's not accepting it the way you would accept it.
They're different. But I talked this also over with Bob and asked him what he would suggest. If you want to meet a guy and you haven't been introduced to him, how do you meet him and not be obvious? And he suggested what he would like if he were in that situation is, say you're at a party, a get together, and you see him and but he hasn't come over and talked to you. You can make your way around the room and talk to different people, and he's one of them, and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, what's your name? And they tell you, and then say, it's nice to meet you, and move on. And then maybe at another gathering or party or whatever, then you've already been introduced, and you could say, hi, yeah, I remember you, we met last time. And then you could ask him something about yourself. There's so many ways for women to attract men. So
now, what about the digital dating? Because that's really big right now. And I think that's especially with the pandemic and all the things that we've been going through the last couple of years. What do you think about the woman kind of making that first move on the .com, the match sites, or the apps?
I have no experience with that, but imagining it, I would say if you're both on there and you both know it, it means you're both looking. So I would think you could say hi, because obviously they're looking and so are you. So it's not like shouldn't be on there if they're already in a relationship. So
right, yeah.
So it's an understood thing between you that you're both open to meeting people.
I've had lots of friends that have done it, and one thing that I think, just to be careful about where you're meeting people, but I still think this advice applies to the digital, the online dating, because you can still be pursued. But I think one of the tips that we had from one of our ladies on our Facebook group about this was to really protect your profile, because your profile will attract a masculine man, it will, or a dirty man or a player, it'll attract a lot of things. And there's things that you can put in there about what the things that you care about that will kind of feed out a little bit less of the, the guys that you're not going to want. Mm-hmm. But I still think, like I said before, that you can be pursued on there and still, like you said, making introductions. I think that's a great tip. Like making an introduction is something really easy, and it doesn't come across as like you're moving in.
And whether it's online or in person, as a woman, even a potential relationship with somebody, you want to know them. You can show genuine interest in a person. What are they like? Find out if they have friends. Are they close to any family? What do they like to do for hobbies? Instead of the guy that, and we've talked about this before, that just always talks about how hot you are. You're not really getting to know him. That's actually kind of a warning flag if he does it all the time. Mm-hmm. Because right. You'd be more interested in physical stuff rather than anything long term.
Okay, so let's move into the next kind of more like stage of this. And that is, you're seeing a guy and you want him to propose.
Yeah.
We get this one a lot. We hear about this all the time. What do you think about what's your best advice for the woman that's really hoping this guy will propose and he's just not doing it?
Well, you've got to understand, try to figure out why. There's a number, and I talk about it in my book, a number of potential reasons why. For Bob, it was money. He was worried, I can't afford to get married. I can't afford a ring. That didn't even occur to me. I just thought, oh, I want to marry him, so let's get married. I don't care if it's with a pop top can. But he did. So he delayed because of money. Some men delay because it's complicated. They've been in other marriages. They have children. They have a complicated life. Sometimes it's that. You may have a child or two. How does that work? And another, unfortunately, is he getting the benefits of a husband without any commitment?
This is the biggest one, really. That one's huge.
Women often don't realize, why would they?
What do you mean by that? What exactly is husband treatment for a boyfriend?
Sleeping together, sex, living together. He's not going to feel as motivated quickly to marry her if they're living together and he's living as though he's married. There's just not the ring.
I think another part of husband privileges is just your devotion and time. Sometimes that's okay in some couples. I have heard where that's fine. Sometimes that's fine. But there's a lot of women, I think, that give everything, literally everything. They're not just their body, but their minds, their time, their devotion. And it's like, why do we need to get married so quickly? We got time. There's nothing that's motivating me.
Well, Bob has had patients that I feel so bad. They've been engaged for 18 years and they've got 6 children. And
like, what's the point?
And she's thinking, well, why doesn't he tie the knot? Well, maybe from a tax point of view, it's just as well off not. First, if you're doing all that, it's kind of a formality for some men.
Yeah, my husband took a while to propose, but I didn't know why. And it was hard for me because I thought, gosh, is he just not ever going to ask me? And I found out at the time that he wanted a specific, you know how he is, right?
I do.
He's very specific. He wanted a specific ring for me, even though I said, I don't even need a diamond. I don't care. I just want, whatever. I was really I didn't want what he wanted, but he wanted to give me this specific ring.
Makes him feel successful. Yeah.
Not only that, but he wanted to pay cash for it. I don't know a lot of men that go this far. They want this specific ring and they want to pay cash for it. And it just meant, he said, I wanted you to have that. I was like, oh, if only I had realized that, So there could be so many reasons why.
There could be a lot of reasons why. And another thing is, what if he has health issues that you're not maybe totally aware of, not real obvious one, like maybe something internal that he hasn't shared with you?
I do still think it's important to share those feelings with him. I don't need this, or I don't need that, because I do think he's listening. When you say things like, I don't need a house, I'm fine with our apartment before we get married. I'm fine with this place.
Well, have you talked about being serious? So you don't just go from dating to suddenly talking about marriage. Right. In our case, Bob had not talked really about marriage. I kept hoping for it, but he hadn't talked about it. And he's always been that way. And a lot of men are. He doesn't realize he's not communicating with me. It's all going on in his own cave. But one of the things that you can do is deciding this is that you need to make sure that you become indispensable to him. You want him to have such a relationship that he thinks, I don't want to live without you.
Right.
I can't imagine my life in the future without you. And that's the part that we can focus on and do really well at. And that's the fascinating womanhood part. Sadly, a lot of women don't really have any idea about that.
Right. I think this is a really good subject, and I'm really glad we were able to address it in kind of a Q&A, because there are so many questions, and I'm sure we probably missed a bunch of them. I'm sure there's a lot of other questions about this, but I'm glad that the overall message is we were able to get there, and thank you so much for answering all of these questions. And I think, isn't it Fascinating Girls, what you were talking about is the right book for the single ladies to learn a little bit more about this?
Well, except that I do have a whole chapter on Timeless is actually for both. And it's so much deeper. I have so much more in it. So you could read either one, but Timeless has the most.
Yeah, Timeless has advice for everyone, every woman. And Fascinating Girl is a good one for singles as well. So definitely check those books out if you haven't already. I'll attach those to the video. I'm also attaching places to find us on social media. If you have a lot of questions, especially if you're single and this is a subject that you want to learn a lot more about, joining our social media groups would be a really great place for you to ask questions and get involved with like-minded women. And we are here every week. So check back with us and subscribe so you know when we have new videos premiere. If you have any suggestions for future topics, you can drop those down below. We love hearing from the audience. And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Bye. Bye.